I want to welcome everybody today to the EntreprenHer Show. And I am really excited to interview my next guest. So let me tell you a little bit about her. We'll get this show on the road. Her name is Candy Barone, also known as the Pull No Punches Accountability Powerhouse. Candy is a certified master coach, certified law of attraction practitioner, certified trainer, professional speaker, and author. Woo! Say that fast 3 times. She is a master at helping people identify their inner superhero by getting crystal clear on their goals, identifying the barriers, getting in their way, and then creating an action plan to get rid of the noise. Boy, don't we have a lot of that. In addition to running her own business, Candy also serves as a trainer for the Certified Coaches Federation, a facilitator coach for the Alternative Board, a business coach for Texas Women in Business, and a chapter director for Public Speakers Association in Round Rock, Texas. Today, Candy's going to talk about her journey, why she chose coaching as a career, and some of the things you could consider when working with a coach. Welcome, Candy.
Thank you, Heidi. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
I am thrilled. And you know what? I want to just quickly say that I met you through one of our mutual friends, Michelle Sism. So I'm going to give a big shout out to Michelle if she does listen to this later on, and thank her because she's introduced me to some really amazing women, and I'm having a lot of fun expanding my own reach. So thank you. Anyway, so let's get started. So tell us about your entrepreneur. About you, entrepreneur, one more time. Tell us about you, Empowered Strong, and what inspired you to pursue a career in coaching.
Absolutely. You Empowered Strong is a way to help people get clear on what they want by saying yes to themselves and destroying the noise. It was actually an idea that came to me when I was in the midst of my corporate career. I had left for a nonprofit, and some things spoke to me. And when I came back to corporate, I sort of put it on the back burner. And as things do, it showed back up and was really the right time to make the step out. And for me, it was about being able to impact more than just those that I was impacting within one organization. I wanted to have greater reach and an ability to really create high performance, greater ROIs, and help people live the life that they say they want most.
So you were coaching in the corporate environment at the time? You were doing coaching.
I've been coaching throughout my 20 years in corporate. I not only coached my individual teams, but also had the opportunity to mentor and coach those that really wanted someone to help guide them as they were navigating through their career. And so, yes, I have a lot of experience I bring to the table.
So when you say navigating their career, so you were coaching them on career choices or on how to act in the workplace. Give me a little bit more background about the kind of coaching you were doing at the time.
Sure, and I would say both. I was doing a lot of career transitions, career promotion type coaching, people that either got looked over or passed over for jobs that wanted to know why and what they could do to more effectively stand in their own power and stand in their own voice. I did a lot of coaching around how to show up as an authentic leader. What does that look like? And how do you create environments to empower your teams to take that responsibility, to take that accountability so that collectively you can play at your highest and best level.
So how does the coaching you did in the corporate environment differ from what you do now as an entrepreneur?
Truthfully, it's a matter of a different title. I will tell you that coaching, it's interesting because people will say to me all the time, so are you a life coach or are you a business coach? Right. And I will say yes.
I love that.
The fundamentals of coaching is the same across the board. It's a matter of helping people see the incongruences between what they say they want and what actions they're actually taking. I also am a firm believer that there is no such thing as life-work balance. It is your life. You have a life. It is one life, and work is just a component, and oftentimes a symptom of things that are going on with you personally. So whether I come at it from the business door or I come at it from the angle of you as a person, an individual contributor, where we get to ends up being the same. And so it's whether I'm working with an executive or working with an entrepreneur, the process is the same. Their language, their environments might be a little different.
So then, why did you decide to go out on your own as opposed to being in the corporate world then? I mean, obviously you had a great career in that space and probably were doing quite well and helping a lot of people. I understand the part of impacting a lot more people, but was it you wanted a different audience, or maybe tell us a little bit more about that?
It was a little of both. I found that it's challenging sometimes in a corporate environment to stand firmly in your voice and to have a voice that is differing from the way the politics are played and the way the mindset. There is a very set mindset across corporate. And a lot of times, unfortunately, it's a very fear based or restrictive
Yeah.
in terms of opportunities. And so when I realized, and when I was hiring other coaches and other speakers, I was the person responsible for that in my budget. It was very interesting and compelling to me to see that they had a message similar to mine, yet they were regarded as an expert and I was sort of dismissed. And so it's interesting
Wow.
because by stepping out, and I've said this to people even as they want to increase their trajectory in their career, that sometimes you have to leave your existing environment in order to elevate your game. Because when you're in an environment where you've grown in that environment, the blinders are on, and sometimes unfortunately they don't see, they do an incremental step instead of big explosive growth. And so for me, in order to have the voice and carry the message around leadership that is so passionate to me, it became very clear I needed to step out. So now, ironically, I've gone back to all of my former stomping grounds and I go in as an expert and I say the same thing, but I'm coming at it from a different perspective.
Yeah, they have a different type of respect for you because now
Absolutely.
instead of paying you as an hourly or a salaried employee, you are a consultant or a coach. Big difference.
Exactly.
Yeah, mindset. I think it's all perception. So you're basically have the same skills, but you've just magnified them in different ways because you can use them, as you said, to help more people. So having made that leap from corporate America to becoming an entrepreneur, I'm sure a lot of people have this question and probably have asked you is what are some of the challenges that you faced when you first started your business? And then again, and also some of the successes in comparison to working in corporate America.
I would say the biggest, and it's in both frames, it comes down to one word: structure. There is a benefit to having structure in corporate, to having someone else lay the landscape, to
Mm-hmm.
know exactly how to cross the T's and I's and what, A plus B equals C, and there's an equation already built, and you get to plug and play. There's a comfortableness in that, and
Right.
there's, as much as you want to resist the box, it's also really a no-brainer that you can just plug and play into the box, where
Right.
when you are the person creating the box or realize that you don't want a box at all and you're trying to create a business that has all of the moving parts and pieces, and you're looking at how to delegate and bring in consultants of your own, or contract employees or actual employees, and you've got taxes, and it's just all those things that you're wearing every hat within an organization instead of the bucket or the box that you played in. And so there's both positives to that, because you get the freedom to build it as you want. But then there's also the challenge of you get the freedom to build it as you want, and you don't know what you don't know. And
Right.
you have a very fast learning curve, whether you want it or not.
So what have been some of the key tools that have helped you in the learning curve and in helping you along the entrepreneur path compared to the corporate path?
Sure. A couple key things for me has really been hiring my own coaches. I look at, and I have a very deep philosophy around, I can't expect my clients to invest in me if I'm not investing in myself. Plus, I also believe that none of us can truly see the forest for the trees when
Right.
we are stuck in the midst of it. And so, first and foremost, that was the thing that I've invested in and I've continued to invest in, because I need those people that challenge me. I need people that think like me, that can help me get it out there in an organized way that I can vision it. The other thing is the networks that I play in. I would say both within my mastermind as well as some of the entrepreneurial groups and the relationships that I've built, either with collaboration partners or just in my board of advisors, my circle of influence, those people that are going to love me, support me, understand, challenge me so that I know I don't have to go at it alone. Those have been really two big key pieces that really I spend a lot of time investing in to make sure they're in place. The rest of it, there's tools and resources that you can pull in, and it
Right.
makes everything.
Yeah, but that's important, and I think that you hit the nail on the head. And everybody needs to understand that nobody can do this alone. We're not. I don't care what they say about being born entrepreneurs. You may be born into a family of entrepreneurs and have a different viewpoint because everybody in your family always worked for themselves. But like I know Michelle talked about that in her interview, that doesn't mean you know how to run a business. You
Right.
know, my mother did not do very well running her own businesses. She had three, but I've been pretty successful in 30 some years in running businesses. So I learned more from her mistakes than I did from her successes. You know,
Yes.
and I don't know if that's the case. And thank you, Mom. I'm sorry. It's true though. I mean, my mom was a fabulous person, but she was one of those people persons that spent more time. Not that it's bad to spend the time with the relationships, but you have to also spend time on the business too, and realize that, like you said, the T's have to be crossed, the I's have to be dotted. You know,
Right.
you got to file your taxes on time.
Right.
All
And I
those
mean, and the
things.
thing that people don't understand, whether they're in corporate or entrepreneurs, is the only way that you succeed, the only way you grow is through your failures. And so I will tell you, as a recovering perfectionist and control freak, it's one of those things that now I fully embrace it. I even challenge my clients to say, how are you going to scare yourself so big that you could risk falling? Because it's interesting. I think it's really interesting that you just used the term, some people will say entrepreneurs are born. They say the same thing about leaders. They'll say leaders are born or leaders are created. And I really want to dispel the myth and say leadership is a choice. It's a choice to be an entrepreneur. It's a choice to be a leader. And when you do, you take the responsibility of knowing you're not going to get it all right. And you're going to try some things on, and you're going to stretch yourself bigger outside of that comfort zone. But there's a responsibility that you take in order to do that. But it's a choice. And I think people cop out sometimes when they go, oh, you were born to be an entrepreneur. Oh, you were born to be a leader. No, it's a choice. It's a choice you make, and it's a way that you choose to show up and serve others.
Well, obviously you made that choice and you did a good job and you're helping a lot of people. So let's talk a little bit about your ideal client, for instance. What does your ideal client look like? How do they find out about you? In other words, how do you market to your ideal client? So that's kind of two questions in one.
Sure. My ideal client, I put into basically two buckets and then kind of expand it and spread it out from there. I say they're either Superman or Clark Kent. Or for the women out there, I say it's either Diana Prince or Wonder Woman. Because when I tell people, when you get clear about your what, why, and who, and it's what is it you want to do, how do you want to show up, serve others, and why does that matter? And then you get clear about who you serve, because I know everybody thinks they serve everyone,
right,
but we don't. And when you get really crystal clear on who, and typically the way I tell my clients, it's three rungs. The first one is the person looking back at you in the mirror. It's someone who's going through similar experiences, has a similar language. Like I'm a extreme type A personality that was, extremely driven, high perfectionist, high control freak, a little OCD, all these things, very successful in my corporate career, knew how to muscle it, knew how to drive it. But it cost me some things doing that. And I hit a point where I was at the verge of burnout and really not healthy personally, emotionally, mentally. And so I see that and recognize that. And those people, I already speak their language. It makes sense for them to be in my wheelhouse. They're hungry for something different. Whereas the person that's a polar opposite, and I would call them more of the Supermans. They know how to fly. They know how to succeed. They're taking care of everybody. And then you get those Clark Kents that sort of, they kind of dream about it, and they know they've got an S underneath their shirt, but they haven't quite given themselves permission to step out in a space to say, what if? And those people I have to be really present with, because a lot of times they tend to be more introverted. They tend to be quieter. They're more of those reflection people. But I'll tell you, when they have a transformation, there's nothing that fills me up more than watching somebody give themselves permission for the first time and truly stepping into their greatness. And so while it may take more, it is so rewarding on the other end. And so when you know that about yourself, you start to market yourself very purposely in that frame. And so you create messaging that is very strong, and it's going to offend some people. But I don't do a lot of seeking out my clients. I'm very fortunate that most of my clients come to me through referrals and organically through my talks or through what I do on social media, because my voice is so strong and I'm very clear about who I serve, that anybody in between, there's a bridge, they can come over anytime, but I'm not going to go try to drag them across to put them in Camp King. And so there's this whole kind of dynamic around that. When you get clear about that, finding and attracting your clients is really easy.
It is. So then, do you work in a specific industry, or is it? I mean, I'm not sure exactly how to ask the question, but I'm
Sure, and I would say no. I don't work in a specific industry. I work with what I call, not to say I don't work with some other outliers, but I work with what I call the 3 E's. So it's executives, it's entrepreneurs, and it's emerging leaders.
Got it.
And the people that I really like to work with are those people that have either they're in the process or see that they want to be building teams, or they have influence over greater communities. Because everything I do is about one to many. It's one of the reasons I stepped out, and I want to create greater influence on a larger scale. So if I'm changing the face of leadership, I want to know that the people I'm working with have that influence to serve it forward and to bring others into that fold. As they're growing as leaders, they're growing others as well.
Excellent, excellent. So let's talk about what a person should look for when considering hiring a coach.
There is a question, and I've had people ask that. What do I look for a coach? And I suggest there is one question to ask first and foremost. Ask that coach, are they investing in their own personal development, and do they have a coach? If the answer is no, walk away. Because I'm going to tell you that if you are going to coach with someone who is not continuing to grow themselves and investing in themselves so that as they grow, they're bringing you with them, you're going to get to a point where you just hit a wall, and it's not the best investment. That's a personal belief, but I think that is the most powerful question you can ask a coach, is to get a sense of how they're growing themselves and where they're investing in that space as well.
That's great. That's great advice. So, what are some of the things that a coach needs to know before they can work with a client, for instance?
Oh yeah, that goes back to that everybody thinks they're for everybody. And so
Right.
a lot of times they see the dollar sign and they bring somebody on board that creates this toxic energy that just doesn't serve them or their business or the brand they're trying to create. And so one of the things that I will suggest as people are moving in that space is they might consider investing in an assessment process. So what are the key questions they need as they've distilled down who their ideal client is? So when they've gotten very clear about that magnet of who do they serve, then they can start asking questions. For example, I have an assessment that I ask questions in 5 different categories. So I ask questions that are what I call candy questions. They're very in your face and tough, and they're going to challenge you, but they're very telling, one, on how you answer them, 2, what your reaction was to doing the assessment, and then what your commitment level is on the back end. And so I ask questions around their vision, their readiness, their energy, their mindset, and their accountability. And then I ask some very hard questions around, are you willing to invest in moving the dial forward? Do you value one-on-one coaching and what that could do for your business? Are you willing to invest time, money, energy, resources? And so they have to score a certain level in order for them to have a one-on-one complementary strategy session to pull them in. So I suggest for people that are in that space that they create a process. They create a filtering system. They create a way that they are asking questions to bring the right people into their business so that then they don't have to worry about how to fire those clients later. Because if you properly qualify and dequalify your prospects, you're building the business that you want, and the rest becomes easy. But it's part of what I call the noise. It's the I in the noise. It's one of the little I's. It's the inability to properly qualify and dequalify people showing up, because we think everybody's for us, and we see the dollar, and we take on business that isn't our business to take.
Yeah. And I think that early on, most entrepreneurs do that simply because they're either desperate or they need the experience. It could be a number of things. But I think you're right. Vetting your clients is so much better if you do it on the front end than I've had to fire clients, and I know that. And had I had that process in place at the time I hired them, or they hired me, because I think it is a two-way street, I would never have had to go through that, because it's emotionally draining when you have to go through that. So why put yourself through that? I don't think any amount of money is worth it. at some point,
Exactly.
you know.
And like Michelle will tell you, you have to apply to be her client.
Yeah, yeah. I love that.
We don't realize as business owners, we have that permission. Just like when people go to interviews, I tell people that are being interviewed to own the interview and make sure it's a right fit for them, not just the company that's interviewing them.
Yeah.
You have power in that. And when you get clear about, you have to apply to be my client, you approach it very differently.
So, what are some of the red flags that keep you from, say, working with someone?
Red flags are overly consumed in the space of victim mentality. People that are arrogant, people that are mean, people that make excuses or project blame everywhere but taking that responsibility forward. People that are not action takers, that are very wishy-washy. I challenge people, and it's another thing that I teach people, is to get clear on yes and no or complete sentences. And you get somebody to a convicted yes, or they are a no. I don't take yeah and maybe. It is either yes, Candy, I want to work with you. I want to start now. Tell me what it costs. Let's go. Or it's, you know what, I don't know if right now is the right time, or I'm the right person for you. But any of that wishy-washiness in between, or that undecisiveness to take action, is a red flag, at least in my wheelhouse, because of the way that I coach and what I do. I'm a tough coach. I love my people hard, but I push them as hard or harder. And I need to know that they're ready for that level of accountability that I'm going to hold them to, and those pushes along the way, because otherwise it doesn't serve either one of us.
Right. So, what are some of the things that you hold people accountable to?
Oh, there's all kinds of things I hold people accountable to. I hold people accountable to the things, the actions that they say they're going to take in between any given period of time. So usually there's a 2-week rhythm between my ongoing accountability calls with a client. And so they will then tell me what it is they're going to hold themselves accountable to. And so then that's what I'm helping them make progress on. It's interesting because you get those people that'll say, well, tell me what to do.
You're right.
How this works. Or I'll give a suggestion and they're like, that's it. And I'm like, that's what? I need you to say it in your words, and I need you to tell me what you're going to take action on, and you want me to help you hold yourself accountable to. And there's people that sometimes doesn't always flow well, because they'll say, but I just want you to tell me what to do. But that's not what I do. I am not going to tell you what to do, because the only way I know you're going to get traction is for you to define it, state it, and then own it, and tell me what it's going to take. And so then we'll break it down. We'll break it down into, okay, if you say you're going to do this 3 times a week, let's look at your week. When are you going to make that happen? I'm going to check on you. I'm going to send you a text and say, hey, how you doing on your accountability? And that's where I'll check you. And then as we're looking at their business plan, it's about getting clear and helping them really define what they say they want. Because a lot of times we just spew words and we don't really mean what we're saying. And so I will have them clearly define it and then attach both quantifiers and qualifiers in terms of how they're going to measure success.
Great. So let's talk about some of the things that have been most surprising as part of the work you've been doing over the years.
Oh, most surprising. That even I need to let go of some of the assumptions or the negative self-talk and the filters and the opinions that sometimes I create for myself. People will surprise you, sometimes in the really most powerfully and beautiful way. Where someone that you even are like, are they really my ideal client? They'll have this incredible breakthrough over something that you didn't even know. There's something about losing those assumptions. I've also noticed that when I'm speaking, that you see those people in the audience that are a lot like me, that when I'm thinking, I get really, that concentrated look, and I look angry. And I'm just
me
trying
too.
to see information.
I do the same thing.
And so you look at a person, you're like, oh, they're not for me. And I have to remind myself to keep loving on them, because they will be the very person that shows up first in line when I'm done to say, Candy, I need to talk to you. Yeah. And so I have to watch the judgments and watch the filters and really listen to people and help them arrive at their solution and not push them to the solution I think is best for them.
So tell us about some of the successes that you've had, and maybe if you could name a couple that your clients have had. Obviously no names, but just in general.
Sure. I have one client in particular who was someone that I did question a little bit. I wasn't sure she was going to be someone that was going to take big action. There was a lot of negative things that were holding her back. And we have been working together. We're going on about a year now. And she, at the end of last year, took herself off of 10 years of being heavily medicated on antidepressants.
Wow.
Because she finally wants to give herself, I might cry. She might give herself permission to actually feel her feelings and learn what's showing up and why. And not only has she embraced that and taken that on, but she's now moving in and closed her business as a consultant and is moving into a role where she can coach and share her story with others. And that was incredibly powerful when she told me she went cold turkey and just said, I'm done. I don't want to be numb anymore in my life. And regardless, good, bad, or indifferent, I want to feel my emotions and I want to explore what they mean and how they're going to carry me forward. And,
wow. That's huge.
You guys,
so
I would, what that does.
Would it be safe to say that most of the things that you do end up being emotional breakthroughs as opposed to maybe, I mean, are they about half and half? I'm just assuming, and I don't want to assume, so.
Well, I will tell you first and foremost, a breakthrough, people think breakthroughs are these big, gigantic movements. A breakthrough is the minute you have access to more information than you had a second before. So I have clients that have breakthroughs in all kinds of capacities. I will tell you, and it's interesting because I have one client that will introduce me. She says, Candy's going to kick your butt, but she's going to make you cry in the process. And I'm like, stop telling people I make them cry. But I've had every client, whether it be a very strong male CEO or executive figure, all the way down to a startup entrepreneur or a mom who's trying to figure out how to transition, every single person that I have worked with, and I just did a workshop yesterday, cry. And because there is something about getting to your own truth and giving yourself pause to really say, who am I when I take all of this away? And who do I really want to be and how do I want to show up and what matters to me? And when you connect, I had a male client who, IT executive, we do a life script and some other things. And I asked him at one point, I said, what's different? He said, it's not about work anymore. It's about what matters. It's about my family and my kids. And he's like, I started crying for him. And he's like, wow. What are you doing? And are you crying for me? And I said, he goes, why? And I said, because you're not giving yourself permission to go there. 3 weeks later, I get the most powerful text message from him that said, I just pulled a candy. I wrote back and I go, what does that mean? He's like, I'm sobbing and blubbering all over myself and I can't stop. And I said, okay, so tell me how that feels. He said, well, aside from being the weirdest thing I've ever experienced, like for the first time, I'm connecting to something that mattered. And he was concerned because his oldest daughter was starting to show up like him. And he's like, I don't like what I see. Wow. I don't like that she's so hard and she's so driven and she's lost her heart and her curiosity. And he's like, I need to teach my daughter something different. And so when he had a moment that realized, that he was now in a position to do that. So then he sent me this beautiful message because I coached him and his wife and did work with their entire family.
Wow.
Sent me the most beautiful message that I text his wife. I'm like, your husband keeps making me bawl. She goes, oh, you should see him. You've like completely transformed our family. And when you get to be part of that, it's so fulfilling. It's so, you stepped into the right space and took the right risks inside of that. Now I'm crying all over myself.
Yeah, but it's got to be so meaningful for you. And you have permission to cry, so go ahead. I feel like crying too. I think it's just, I tend to not be a very emotional person, but I do tap into my feelings when it's necessary. And I've been known to cry a few times. But I know how hard it can be, those breakthroughs. And for me, it's usually big breakthroughs because I tend to be that very guarded, and I'm an introvert to begin with. And people don't believe that because I do these shows. I love people, but I like the one-on-one as opposed to big crowds and, but I'm perfectly happy being alone by myself, doing my writing, doing this, doing that. And I actually force myself to do these things a couple of times a week so that I stay connected in the real world, because we can get lost in technology. We can get lost, doing our job every day and not really paying attention to what's going on around us. And I know it's happened to me. I've got 3 grown children and grandchildren, so I definitely know exactly what you're talking about. So if you had it to do over again, what would you do differently, Candy?
Wow, what would I do differently? I might hit pause a little bit more about some of the things I invested in coming out of the gate. I have a sales mentality, I have a squirrel mentality, and so I see shiny objects, and I made some bad investments that, and I shouldn't say bad because I don't really believe in good and bad. I made investments that didn't really serve me, but at the same time, they were such incredible learning opportunities. I don't know
Right.
because I'm not a person that believes in regret. I believe everything I've done has had a purpose and it gets me to where I'm at. So I don't know if I would do anything differently because I don't know if I'd be here if I did. But it's definitely given me the lens to do things differently moving forward because I don't repeat those same mistakes. Because then that's a whole different, that's a choice, and that's a whole different um, thing I need to look at if I see those mistakes repeated and showing up time and time again. For me, it's an opportunity to say, okay, that didn't quite work. That didn't serve. So moving forward, that's not going to be the space I play in anymore. And I've gotten stronger in my voice and my decisions to say yes and no in those spaces than maybe where I was at 3 years ago when I started.
So it sounds as though not only are you a great entrepreneur, you're also a very creative person, obviously, to have been able to build this type of a business. It's, I know I've spoken to lots of coaches and a lot of them struggle. And I think
Mm.
they're struggling either because they're taking on the wrong clients or they're maybe not doing the thing that they're supposed to be doing. I'm not sure I'm not a coach. I do consulting, but I'm more of a hands-on type person. So for me, if I coach somebody, I'd be wanting to do it for them, and
Right.
that would not
Which
help.
is the consultant in you because there
Yeah,
is a difference between being a consultant and a coach.
exactly. Which is
Consultant
why I
does.
call, yeah. See where I'm a, I. That's why I know I'm a consultant and not a coach. I tried doing coaching. That lasted about 3 minutes. I realized it wasn't for me. But I admire and I have a coach and I love. In fact, I'm considering Michelle. I'm working with this one coach and I'm thinking about maybe working with Michelle. Was talking to Valerie Hubbard.
Covered.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and she was talking about your group and everything, and I said, "Wow, that's really where I need to be now. I need to get to another level." And I've got a great coach I've had for years, but I think that also, do you believe this? And because in my case, feel like I've outgrown my coach,
Yep. And
even
I
though
do
my
think
coach
that
has a
happens.
coach. She
I
has a
think that
coach.
happens, especially if it's a coach that's not continuing to grow themselves
Yeah,
in a capacity that meets where your growth. If you're overgrow or outpacing your coach, it makes it challenging to have that person because you've got to have something that you're emulating, something that you
right.
continue to inspire.
Got it.
Plus, for me, one of the reasons I moved out of some of the coaches I was working with is because, and one of the things I love about Michelle is I wanted a mastermind. I wanted a board of advisors that I could play at a different level, that people are hungry. And what happens in the mastermind is as powerful or more than just the one on one coaching itself, because there's this dynamic of like minded people
Right.
that are all around a table, rolling up their sleeves, digging in, cutting the BS and laying it down raw and vulnerable, and knowing there's no judgment, knowing that everybody's trying to grow, knowing that you've got the support and the love that you need. That just speaks volumes. And when you don't get that in certain environments, sometimes that's the growth and the trajectory that you need to move forward. But I do think people outgrow their coaches. I've
Yeah.
outgrown coaches in my life. But I also think there's people that will stay with you for the long haul because they just happen to be growing a step or two behind the trajectory that you're growing, and you bring them along for the ride.
Well, I think that's good to know because I think Michelle would be one of those people because she's a very I think I'm a little bit like her, but not quite personality wise, no, but in terms of approach. And I actually run two masterminds. One's an author mastermind, another one's a business mastermind. I totally believe in the whole process of masterminding. It even though I'm running them, I end up getting as much out of it as the group does most of the time. So I feel like those are really good places. However, having said that, the groups that I'm running, I am still teaching. So
Sure.
I need to be in a group where I'm not the teacher, I'm the student more.
Yeah.
Or at
Big
least
difference.
an equal with the peers, you know what I mean? Is if that makes sense on the
It
same
makes
playing
perfect
level.
sense. And I will tell you, as someone who is a trainer and a teacher and runs workshops and mastermind and groups, while you learn from your students and you learn from when you're facilitating, I learned so much from any of this. It's very different being the person that is a true participant and doesn't have the other and isn't wearing the other hat.
Right.
So I agree with you wholeheartedly. it's kind of that whole you can't see the forest for the trees. It's why I'm very good at whiteboarding and mapping things out for someone else. But I think out loud, it's the extrovert in me, and I need someone that can do that the way I do for other people so that I can just be in a moment to just let it flow and not try to. And I think it's why, and I tell people that struggle with why they have writer's block. And I said, it's because you're trying to be creative and edit at the same time.
Right.
You can't fully write and edit at the same time. And it's the same thing when you're in a mastermind. You can't facilitate and be part of the mastermind at the same time because you're
totally.
editing and you're in flow. And I need a place where I can just be in flow.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about, I'm not sure we answered this question. Where do you get your creative ideas? And obviously it sounds like some of it comes from your mastermind, but do you have
I have a couple places that I get creative ideas. One, I am voracious about and very diligent around my reading and where I invest my time and energy. I have a goal for this year that I will read a book a week. I am on par to do that right now. I am a very spiritually connected, personally connected, emotionally connected person to the natural world. So I start, especially when I'm not traveling, I start and end my day taking a long walk with my dog. I take and end my day that way. And I do a lot of hiking and I do a lot of reflection time there. I also have started to take on meditation, but it's that quiet space. As much as I'm an extrovert in a lot of areas, I'm also a very deep introvert when I need to recharge and replenish. And so my creative time comes from time away from the hustle and bustle and people and serving. And even at Christmas through the holidays, I took deliberate time off, stayed off social media, stayed off my email, made myself a little crazy because it was almost too long. But what happened was my creativity was coming out of every pore because I had time to just be still.
Right.
And so I give myself some very purposeful, I build an ideal calendar, my week, that there is purposeful reflection time, there's purposeful reading time, it's a lot of quiet time, and purposeful time outside. And so I live in Austin, Texas, so it's beautiful. I get to be outside all the time, but sunshine, the air, the atmosphere, all feeds my creativity.
Oh, that's wonderful. It's nice to live in a place like that. I live in Florida, so I know what you mean. And my husband and I take a walk every day. If it's either in the morning or in the afternoon, we take an hour walk, and and it's funny, we don't talk much. We're both thinking we're all processing our own thoughts and doing our own thing, and we might talk maybe for 5 minutes, and we'll get home and it's like, wow, that was a great walk, but what were you thinking? And then we'll share our idea, and it's just such a kind of a fun thing that we do. And so I agree with you. You need to get out. You need to get fresh air. You need to get out of the space you're in, whatever that looks like. Because if you're living in the snow, maybe getting out in the fresh air is not the right thing. But, moving to a different room away from a computer is a good thing, And I agree. Social media, I have to take a break from it once a week, at least. Totally no social media on. And usually it's Sunday. Simply because if I did this 7 days a week, I would never be able to do this the other 6 days,
Right.
So
right. Well, people don't realize that you got to break from just your routine.
You do.
And there's just a place to, and I read it, there was a really great quote that I just saw yesterday or today, something said, when you get comfortable in your own solitude and you make friends with your own solitude, you will never be lonely. And people really don't take time to just center and go within and be still. And just get to hear their own thoughts and think and have those private conversations within themselves. There's a lot of power in a lot of your creativity. It also is very important what you do before you go to bed to fire up your creativity so that you aren't plugged into social media. You aren't watching mindless, toxic television, but you are purposely doing something that aligns you with the things that you say you want most, that either allows you to quiet down, because we create in our dreams. We create when we're sleeping. And so if you want to enhance and tune into that creativity, there's a lot of power in quieting yourself down and being purposeful about what images, what things, what thoughts you have before you go to sleep.
So you talked about reading a book a week. So what's the book you're reading this week?
The book I am reading right now is I am actually finishing up The Three Magic Words.
Oh, what? And who wrote that? The Three Magic. I've heard of it, but
you gotta. I don't even know. I'd have to look here. I can
That's
tell
okay.
you. I don't know who it is. Off the top of my head, what is the? I can tell you if you. I'm also starting, you'll see it when you believe it by Wayne Dyer, because I've been on, Yule Anderson is the author for my 3 magic words.
Yule Anderson. Got it. Because I like to share that on social media after I've had an interview with a great woman like you, and I can say, oh, and these are some of the books she recommends. So let's talk about the one bit of advice you'd like to share that perhaps you haven't talked about yet today.
The one bit of advice is stop listening to everybody else. Just truly destroy the noise. There is so much we shift in terms of our own power and our own ability to stand in our voice and our authenticity. We hand over everything to people that aren't even the people we know, like, and trust. And we forget that everything that was given to us for a reason. And I ask and I challenge people to say yes to themselves so that they can fully stand in their own power. And if that means you're standing out there on an island by yourself, then embrace it. Embrace that weirdness. Embrace that everything. I think we should start tagging the word normal as a bad word. I don't want people to be normal. I don't want them to fit in. I want them to stand out. And so that's the thing, that if I could leave that with them, is how are you going to stand out? How are you going to make your mark?
Great advice. What's next for Candy Barone?
What's next for me? Oh my goodness. What's not next? I am looking at doing even bigger platforms, even bigger speaking events to carry a message that really does have that influence. I'm doing a lot of work with my children's book as well, which is taking a message in to show them that they have a purpose, and helping them understand that the value of their own power. But it's really just scaling up what I've been doing so that I have a much greater reach. In fact, I'll be at a university next week. I'll be at Texas Tech. And so I'm starting to increase my visibility in colleges and universities. And so if I can get to some of those, young adults, emerging leaders, before they've got all these filters and noise running in their head, then I want access to that. I want to give them the tools they need to go out and take the training wheels off and really soar at a new level, and not be 40, 50, 60 years old trying to figure out who are they and where did they get lost in the shuffle.
Like my generation, because a lot of us have.
I'm a Gen Xer, trust me. You want to talk about a generation that feels lost.
Yeah. And my children are all Gen Xers, so I get it. And it is true, because you don't know your purpose a lot of times. I mean, it took me a long time to discover it, probably 10 years ago, before so thank God I did. But some people never do, because they don't know what they don't know. And they don't have people like you who can help them. Or they don't know that they need people like you who can help them. So I want to just say thank you for all you're doing to make a difference. And impacting the youth is the only way we can make a big change long term. I really think. I mean, you can change me, maybe you can help me make my changes and stuff, but if it doesn't filter down to the generations, if it keeps stopping, it feels like you're starting over every time. So I applaud you for going into the schools and doing what you're doing. I think it's marvelous. So thank you, because
absolutely,
we need that generation to be more self-aware and to really step up.
Yeah. And I look at it as you do it top down, you bring it grassroots up, and somewhere they're going to meet in the middle. Because I do think there's still influence that needs to change from their parents and the existing leaders that are out there. And so I want to bring it from both fronts and have them come in and have different conversations at the table.
Excellent. So I understand you have a tip or a resource of the week. Would you like to share that? Maybe it's your favorite website or something that you use in your business every day that you just have to have.
Yeah, I would say, a tip that I have for people is I want every day you to find something that scares you. If it's not big enough to grow you, if it's not big enough to scare you, it's not big enough to grow you. And every single day, take on something that scares you to the core. Because if you truly want to show up, and if you want to create impact, and if you want to grow, then you need to push out of your comfort zone every day. And so it is one thing that I will tell people, my clients, whoever, and myself, how am I going to scare myself today? How am I going to do that? It makes me want to throw up when I think about it. My stomach's upside down, but how am I going to get up? And what am I going to do that scares the living life out of me? It's been a motto of mine that if I'm showing up that way, then I know it's present. I know I was on fire and on purpose. And so it's a question or a thing that I ask myself every day when I get up.
Wonderful. Okay, so last question. What's the best way for our listeners to contact you?
Sure, the best way is to go to my website, which is Candy, Candy, Barone, B as in boy, Arone, international spelled out.com. So that is candybaroneinternational.com.
Excellent. Candy, it has just been a delight having you today, and I'm really thrilled that I had this opportunity to share your message with our audience, and I hope we get to do it again. And if you know any other wonderful women like you, please feel free to let us know.
I will, and thank you so much, Heidi. This was absolutely
my
delightful.
pleasure.
And truly honored to be here.
Thank you. And I just want to say thank you to our listeners, those who are watching live and those watching the replay, to be sure and visit EntreprenHers.com. That's our website, and check out our channel to see some upcoming shows. We do have a guest next week. I'm not sure what her complete name is. We've been talking on social media, so I'll share that later on, but I'm very excited. Always amazing women to interview. So if you would like to be one, if you're a woman and you do business in any fashion, feel free to get a hold of me through through social media. Again, Heidi Richards Mooney. It has been my honor to present the Entrepreneur Show with you today. Thank you, Candy. Take care.
Bye, Heidi. Thanks.